What is good, NFL fans? I'm going to be talking about the Arizona Cardinals. Just as a franchise, looking at them, what are they doing, man? What are they doing? You know, they went to a Super Bowl with Kurt Warner, Larry Fitzgerald. I'm going to stop being so grim. I'm going to give some optimism to the Cardinals. Drafting Jeremiah Love, the 4th overall pick, I believe was a good decision. Yes, it kind of works backwards in my opinion. Offensive line first, then the running back is only successful as their offensive line, in my opinion. And I think that should be everyone's opinion, honestly. I think that's a lot of people's opinion anyways, people that know football. So he might be struggling against that. They did draft that guard, Chase Pasantes, from Texas A&M, who I was high on. He's an athletic guy. Looks like a good player. Hopefully he's a hit for them, home run hit for them, because that would be really good for them. They got Paris Johnson. They selected high. I think he's been okay his career. I honestly don't know too much about him. I haven't focused too much on him. They signed that guy from the Steelers, that guard, Samula. That's a good pickup. But can the Cardinals, can they elevate? Can they move past their curse, their problems, I guess you can say, as a franchise, where you're in a division where you have literally probably the best division of football. I mean, those three teams are absolutely just year in, year out. For the moment, well, the Seahawks kind of was the third best, right? Then when they got Mike McDonald, whatever his name is, that kind of rose to a higher level. But anyways, the Rams and 49ers have been just killing the 2020s, man. They're just great organizations. So can you compete with those teams? Can you compete with those three powerhouse teams? Because at the end of the day, your goal as a team is first win your division. You win your division, you're in the tournament. Then you can focus on, okay, let's try to win it. Let's go win a Super Bowl now. And if you don't win the division, then okay, well, let's try to get in the playoffs, right? So it kind of goes like that, in my opinion. Your first focus should be on winning your division. That is your first goal as a team, in my opinion. That should how it is. I get Super Bowl is the main goal, but your first goal is to attack the division. And how are you gonna try to beat your division, right? How are you gonna create matchup problems? How are you going to cover matchup problems that the opposing team has for you? How are you going to cover Puka Nacua? How are you going to cover JSN? Things like that. George Kittle, Mike Evans now, and Christian McCaffrey. How are you going to game plan against him? So the Cardinals, they're on a steep hill, a very steep hill. And nothing's impossible in life. They can do it. It's just they got to hit on their draft picks. That's the main thing. Their most important off-season part in their building of their team is the draft. If they hit on their picks, if they draft the correct players for their team, the guys that'll fit their culture, the correct culture, raise the Cardinals brand to newer heights, they could turn around their franchise. And starting with Jeremiah Love, that's a great pivot. That's a great way to start things. You got rid of Kyler. You thought he was going to be your pivot, your savior of your franchise. But when you put all chips in one player, that's when things go a little haywire, because football is the ultimate team sport. If you are thinking that one guy will be your savior of your franchise, the one guy that you think will save all your problems. That is not the case. You have to build a winning team through every single player on your roster. The 53 players on your roster, those, you have to treat them equally and look at them like they all make an impact to winning. And if players don't make an impact to winning, you find ways to get them off your roster. And you have to establish that culture as with the Cardinals. The Cardinals have to establish that winning culture, that attitude that we don't care who's in our division. We're gonna build the Cardinals, the Bird Gang, as they call themselves, culture, and start to be in comparison with themselves. Look, right now, yes, you're way behind these three teams, but if, like I said, if Carson Beck hits, which that's going to be tough. I don't know about him. He was hyped up to be a top 5 pick a couple years ago, and then kind of flunked at Georgia at the last season with Georgia. And then kind of did some good things at Miami last year, so that looked promising, right? And Mike LaFleur even said it best. He's dealt with a lot of adversity, Carson Beck. So that's a good thing to have before you enter the NFL, because every week you're gonna deal with adversity because it's so damn competitive, and there's so many one-score games that every inch matters, every play matters. So for the Cardinals, man, just keep building on what you're doing. Build that offensive line for Jeremiah Love. You got a couple good receivers. You got probably the best tight end in football, and Trey McBride. Build that defense, right? Get that defense to where it could compete for a division title, a possible championship. So Cardinals, you're on the right path. You got a new head coach. He's going to install that scheme, that West Coast scheme that's been, dominating the NFL and the offensive landscape. So, I'm rooting for the Cardinals to do well. They're an underrated franchise, but under the radar. We shall see. So, Cardinals fans, you got this, man.